Good Monday, AP students. So this is actually going to be due for you on Thursday, in addition to some of the flashcards that you're going to have to do as well. So hopefully everything gets done well for you. So again, before we moved from Southeast Asia and went across, now we're going on from East Asia, and we're going back to the Mediterranean region. Particularly, we're going to be looking at the areas of Western Europe and Eastern Europe and how they kind of developed a little bit differently from one another. So, last unit, during Unit 2, you all had to read about Rome and the Roman Empire, one of the greatest empires of all time. And it really was, and that's just because it stretched all the way from England and Spain, covering all the way to Turkey over here and parts of Egypt and so on. And that's where it was at its height, about 200 CE. That's about 1800. This GIF of the Roman Empire shows how it slowly grows from just being part of Italy in 220 BCE, 190 BCE, and how it's slowly growing. The empire grows until in the 20 CE and 70 CE, the Common Era, it's going to grow at its maximum here from Great Britain all the way over here to Turkey. It's too large though, and they can't maintain all of it, so the empire is split in two, the blue representing the Western, the green representing the Byzantine, and then we're going to see how it slowly begins to collapse. The Byzantine Empire is getting smaller, smaller. Oops, made a comeback. Nope, going smaller again. This is them being constantly defeated by outside forces. They're pushing back to gain land. They lose it again. Lose more. Lose more. Oh, there's just little Greece right there. Oh no, it's only got a paw, until it's completely obliterated. Well, going back a little bit before total obliteration of it, the Roman Empire is divided in two by Emperor Diocletian. So Diocletian decides, like, this is way too big to protect. When empires get too large, it makes them vulnerable. They can't control all of them. It would be like one person trying to clean an entire mansion. Can you imagine one person trying to clean the entire United Center? That would be awful. Things wouldn't be that clean. One person also can't protect the whole place. And so he divides it in two, with Rome being the capital of the west side of the empire, and Constantinople, named after Emperor Constantine, is going to be the capital of the east side of the empire. Rome, west side, Tupac Shakur. Constantinople, east side, Biggie Smalls. Just remember that? West, east. Well, Emperor Constantine, of course, is the one who makes, okay. Oh, crap. Emperor Constantine is the one who makes Christianity the major religion of the Roman Empire. And so just remember that. It's also a really terrible movie starring Keanu Reeves. So the capital of the Roman Empire was once here with Rome. It gets split in two by Diocletian, and the capital then moves to Constantinople, which is, of course, named after Constantine. Okay, Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, we can see kind of the biggest differences between the East and the West. The biggest differences is that the Eastern Empire, it's a little bit smaller, but it's all unified. It's just called the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium. Whereas the Western Empire, look at this. We've got the Anglos, the Saxons, the Franks, the Visigoths, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Germans, all the Goths, all the Poles, all the Slavs, all of those are going to be located here. That means that you have all these different types of people who aren't really united under anything. Unlike over here, you have one group of people who just call themselves the Roman Empire. Okay, the Western Empire also consist of Russia, especially. The Byzantine Empire, let's look at the big picture of them. So 284, Diocletian splits Rome into the east and the west. And 330, Emperor Constantine moves the capital to the Greek city of Byzantium, and he calls that capital Constantinople. From 330 to 1453 CE, the Eastern Roman Empire just keeps being the Roman Empire. But we as historians, and you will too, will know it as the Byzantine Empire from here out. The Byzantine Empire finally collapses after 1,000 years after the fall of the Roman Empire, when the Ottoman Turks seized Constantinople and they changed it to Istanbul. I told you there's that whole different, Istanbul is going to be the same name for Constantinople, and there's a little song that goes with it. It's called Istanbul is Constantinople. Yes, Istanbul is Constantinople. That's all I know. It's much longer. You can definitely look it up on YouTube. All right. The Byzantine Empire consciously keeps up with the Roman legacy, and it does that by making sure that, one, they keep up with the Roman language. They actually call themselves the Romans. Also, they're they have a smaller border to protect, so they can make sure that those angry Visigoths and whatnot don't get their little nasty barbaric hands in on it. And they also protect kind of the Roman legacy of their art, architecture, readings, and so on, literature, and so on. The Byzantine Empire is famous for 4 things, and these are the 4 things that you must know. 1, they're really, really famous for their bureaucracy. Bureaucracy means that they have a lot of government red tape. It's kind of like China. They're more bureaucratic than ancient Rome. Byzantine today means that something's really annoyingly complex. One might say AP World History is totally Byzantine. I'm probably not even using that correctly, but it just means that it's annoyingly complex, almost to the point where you can't get anything done. It's also known for Justinian, who's the emperor, Justinian, and Justinian's Code. We'll get to Justinian and Justinian's Code later on, so let's keep moving. They're also very, very famous for Orthodox Christianity. And Orthodox Christianity is going to be a split off from Roman Catholicism. And they separate with the Great Schism of 1054 CE, but we'll come back to that just in a new way. So we'll get back to that a little bit later. But it's a new kind of Christianity. It's also known as Eastern Orthodox, and it's also going to be known as Greek Orthodox as well. And the Byzantine Empire is also known for their artistic and architectural styles. They preserve a lot of the Hellenistic and Roman style. So Hellenistic meaning Greek, and a lot of the Roman style there. They're also pretty cool in that they steal the silk technology from the Chinese as well. So they figure out how to get their hands on the little silkworms, and they steal those as well, and so that because they're right there along the Silk Road, and they can profit on that really highly. Okay. Bureaucracy and centralization that we have here. The Byzantine Empire is very, very theocratic. And that means that emperor is both the head of the state and he's the head of the church. That's known as Kaiser papism. So it comes from the word Caesar, meaning emperor, and papal means relating to the church. So you literally have Caesar papism or Kaiser papism. It's basically meaning that the emperor is God anointed and he's a reflection of God on earth. The emperor and church are equally important in salvation. That's kind of big, and they're kind of weird too. But then again, they're quasi-meritocratic, kind of like China there. They're mostly bureaucratic that they have there, meaning that some people outside of the aristocracy would be able to get training and jobs, but most of those jobs go to the elite, but in some instances they can't have jobs that go to those that are outside of the aristocracy, which again is very much like China. Like China and kind of like Japan as well, where it's a little bit meritocratic, but most people are going to be the wealthy. The government also controls the trade. Trade is the whole economic enchilada for the Byzantines. They have to have it. And if you think back to where the Byzantine Empire is located, trade is incredibly important. They're right there between the Silk Road and the Mediterranean. They're also close to the Trans-Saharan trade network, and they're close enough to be able to get to the Indian Ocean trade network. Trade is huge for them. So, seeing here, look at where they are. They're a hop, skip, and a jump away from the Indian Ocean trade network. Look at the Silk Road here, the Mediterranean. They know that they can do very well there. Okay, going back to that silk. They're along the Silk Road. It's a funny story that Emperor Justinian actually sends people to go steal some silkworms so they can construct their own silk, and they're successful at it. They actually get at it, and they begin to create their own silk and sell it to the West and to Northern Africa, kind of cutting out the Chinese there. Hint, hint, this is the beginning of the end for the Chinese. All right. We're not going to look at the GIF one more time, but just kind of trying to remember that the Roman Empire starts off just in Italy. It begins to grow. It becomes too big to handle because by the turn of the millennia, it's way too large. They have to divide in two, again, to the west and the eastern half. The western half is going to completely collapse once we start seeing the blue disappear. Oops, it's gone, leaving only the Byzantine Empire to stay around through their eventual fall in the 1400s, in the 1530s. Okay, let's look up, I told you we'd get back to Justinian and his code. Justinian, his code is going to be in 500 CE. AD and CE mean the same thing. Justinian, he was the emperor that's responsible for the golden age of the Byzantine Empire. Almost every empire is going to have a golden age. And so as we know from other golden ages, blah, 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 trade is really great, blah, 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 there's lots of peace, blah, 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 there's lots of wealth, and blah, 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 there's lots of artistic and architectural gains there. They get Rome back during this golden age, but they only get it back for a little bit. They're going to lose it again. And again, that's because they're constantly being able to have to fight to defend their territory. But what's really interesting about Justinian is that Justinian has bureaucrats recodify the Roman law. And so he comes up again with a set of laws for the peoples that they all know. It's kind of like the Hammurabi Code, or like the 12 Tables of Rome. This code is for everybody. It protects women, the poor built for commoners, and the poor. And it's also built for commoners' understanding, meaning that anybody, whether they're literate or not, would be able to understand. This is the Emperor Justinian. It's a very famous depiction of him. I always remember it by the big eyes. And he kind of looks like Julius Caesar, but he's not wearing a wreath. So that's how I remember it. And this is also mosaic. Mosaic is going to be one of the biggest styles of the Byzantine Empire. So just remembering that they're really big into the broken mosaic glass. Also, one piece of monumental architecture that you're going to need to remember is the Hagia Sophia. The Byzantine Empire is really known for its domes. These domes are going to be mimicked by Islamic empires that come later. But the Byzantine Empire is really, really into mimicking Roman architecture. So if you see all of these curved windows here, you see them, they're round arch-like windows. Those are a throwback to ancient Rome, which was really big for its arches. But if you see churches with lots of domes on it, you know that they're kind of Byzantine or Roman inspired. Need to remember that mosaic art, is really popular amongst the Byzantines, and most of their art is going to be centered around religion. So most of their art is going to be centered around religious practices and ideals. This is also a Justinian coin. So this coin is really quite popular if you see this as well. This coin was actually minted, meaning created, after Justinian died. However, it was given to the elite classes. People didn't spend this for money. People would often wear them as necklaces in order to honor Emperor Justinian and all the work that he did. Again, another Orthodox church. You can tell the Orthodox churches not only by the crosses that are on them, but by the domes again. And you can make them, they're distinct from Islamic churches in that they have the crosses there, because you'll see a lot of Islamic mosques that just have the domes, but you can tell this is going to be a Greek Orthodox because of the dome and the cross symbols that are there. Okay, Byzantium is in decline for many years, and most of it's going to be because of the rise of Islam, and we'll study Islam a little bit later after this one. The Byzantine Empire is kind of like that uncle or aunt that you know that's been old for a long time. You're like, man, you've been like 60 for about 20 years. They start declining around 600 CE, and that's because Islam starts in the 600 CE, and it gains power and it stomps completely on Byzantine Empire's territory, the Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey. And the Byzantine Empire is like, wait a minute, I thought those are mine. And Islam is like, no. So if we remember that GIF of the Roman Empire and it expanding and contracting, that's mainly because for about 1,000 years, Byzantium is always losing territory and people to Islam. And that's why if you go back and look at that GIF again, it contracts and expands and contracts and expands. And it holds on until about, again, 1450 CE. The one thing that's a positive interaction is sign of cultural diffusion that happens between the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Empire is that the Byzantines, because of their obsession with Greek and Roman culture, they end up preserving that culture and transmitting it to the rest of the world, to the Islamic world. And Muslims, guys, they're going to use Greek and Roman art and architecture and mathematical and scientific achievements. They're going to build upon those and spread them out. And at the same time, Islamic styles of art and culture are going to influence Byzantine art as well. So cultural diffusion goes both ways. So if I were to ask you about how did cultural diffusion show itself in interactions between the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Empire, you would say you'd see it through the preservation of learning and the influence in the art that they had. So here's another picture of looking at the Umayyad Caliphate. Now, right now, I might as well be speaking gibberish because you're not sure what that is, but this is going to be to come what we're going to call the former the former Byzantine Empire, but this is the Islamic Empire, and look at it. The Byzantine Empire is right here, and Islam kind of takes over, kind of takes it. The Byzantines are on the verge. And because of the threats that they feel happening from the outside, they actually build a wall. So these are the Theodosian walls, and it was built by Emperor Theodosius to protect the city of Constantinople. And so walls are going to be a big part of this time period. So we talked about the Great Wall of China. We have the wall at Constantinople. We have the Great Wall of Zimbabwe. All of these walls are there to protect people from invaders. But it's also these great signs, these magnificent signs of monumental architecture. And there are more, and it's not continuous anymore. Parts of it have been broken through, but it is quite beautiful to see. I said part of the wall isn't there anymore, and that's because of this here. At the very fall of the Byzantine Empire, these are what are going to be known as the Ottoman Turks. They're Muslim. They're an Islamic empire, and they're actually going to siege Constantinople. And as you can see, they destroy many parts of the wall. Parts of it are still standing, but they are actually, with their technology, remember they're getting new technology from China, and they're building upon that and making it better, and they're getting great technology from Northern Africa, and they're building on that and making it better, and where they become a mighty bad military force. So another exterior of this church. Do you remember the name of the other church that was domed? That's an Eastern Orthodox church. If you said Hagia Sophia, go ahead and kiss your brain. You're doing pretty great. All right. This is going to be that example of cultural diffusion that's going to happen there. This is a picture, an aerial view, that means a view from the air, of the city of Constantinople. Today it's not known as Constantinople. Can you remember the name of it? Yay! Yes, it's Istanbul. Okay, so we did a little Dora Explorer there. And now at the center of it is many remnants of the Great Wall. You can kind of see it here. You can kind of see it over here. So we have some remnants of the Great Wall. It's not continuous throughout. And you also see a giant mosque in the middle here. It doesn't have, it has minarets at the top. It doesn't have crosses at the top. So it's a giant mosque there at the center because, as you know, many parts of the Byzantine Empire were taken over by Islam, as we said, and they're also going to create and put their mosques inside. Quite similar. So again, they both influence each other in that way. Schism of 1054. The Great Schism is basically when the church, the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church are going to divide. Let's take a look at the history of Christianity. Christianity develops from this little guy here, Judaism, Jewish people. Christianity came from Jewish people. So did Islam, but we'll get to that later. So, Christianity starts way back when. It's one of the oldest religions in the world. In the year 0, Jesus comes along. Christianity spreads, and he spreads in the Roman world. Constantine converts, and the Roman Empire becomes all Christian in 300 CE. Christian is doing its own thing in the West, and then Christianity begins to do its own thing in the East. Remember from your reading that we have Christians in the West believe in celibacy for their priests. That means their priests can never have sex, they can never have children, never get married. They also highly revere Latin. Everything's done in Latin, the language of the elite, and the language of Miss Casapop that many of you will be taking next year. They also have the Pope as the center of the faith. The Pope is the center of the faith. He's the head honcho. Unlike the Eastern side. On the Eastern side, things are going down differently. They're telling their priests, hey, you can get married. You can have a beard. That's fine. Instead of having a pope, they have a patriarch. The patriarch's not really the head of everything, but he's a little bit of the head of the church. The patriarch's actually appointed by the emperor. And instead of speaking Latin, they decide that they want to speak Greek. All of these things are going to lead to something called a schism. Things are going to divide. People are going to divide and completely go their own separate way. And that great schism is going to happen in 1054 CE. These people say hey, we're all Roman Catholic. You're not Christian over there. And these people are going to say, we're Eastern Orthodox and you're not Christian. Both of them are basically accusing each other of not following the tenets of Christianity. And who knows? Okay, and we can see the differences between the two paintings that are here. Can you guess which one is the Roman Catholic depiction of Jesus and which one's the Byzantine depiction of Jesus? Yes, if you said this one here on the right is the Byzantine depiction of Jesus, you would be correct, even with his pointy fingers, because it's a mosaic. The big thing to remember here is that we said that most of their art is going to be based on religion and it's going to use mosaics. They also are showing Jesus as being wholly majestic. Look at him. He's just somewhere up in a circle in the sky, completely godlike and defined. We see no blood, no sadness on him. For the Roman Catholics, he's seen as kind of being human too, and on the level of everybody that's down here. He is the people's Jesus. So, that's that. trying to remember the difference between the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. So I'm just going to have you shout right back at the screen because I can really hear you. All right, for the Catholic, the leader of the Catholic Church is going to be the Pope. Who's going to be the leader for the Eastern Orthodox? You got that right, Deja. It is the Patriarch. Okay, let's see. We've got the priests are celibate, and they have to shave their faces and keep their hair short. How can the priests behave for the Eastern Orthodox? Oh yeah, Nathan, go ahead and get it. Yes, priests can get married and they can have beards. Okay, let's see if you can get this one. Latin is going to be the official church language for Catholics. How about for the Eastern Orthodox? Got that right, Magali. It is Greek. Greek is going to be the official church language that are there. Let's see if I can stump you on this one. They use a wafer for communion. Oh no, Josephine, they're not going to use Skittles. Instead, they're going to use bread for communion. So they're going to use a whole bread, a loaf of bread, chunking it out just to be able to eat from there. Christmas is going to be the most important holiday for the Catholics. Easter is going to be the most important holiday for Eastern Orthodox. The church is going to be very, very centralized in Rome. The church power is more localized, and people are going to be able to use more local languages that are within it. The Pope is independent of any empire, whereas the Patriarch, as you know from your readings, is appointed by the Byzantine Empire. The Catholics are like, we love icons, can't get enough of those crosses and Virgin Marys, while the Eastern Orthodox are going to be completely against iconoclasm sometimes. And they're going to be against idols. And they're going to say, hey, it tells us in the Ten Commandments. Strayer this is the division of the church. And Strayer opened up with a meeting between this guy, Pope John Paul II, and this guy, the Patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And it showed how they were trying to meet in 1964 to kind of close the gaps between everybody. Again, the Roman S-style architecture of the Byzantine Empire, curved arches. This again is the Hagia Sophia. Versus the Catholic style architecture, which is much more Gothic. Instead of having, if you can tell here, it's much more dark, less colorful. Whereas for the Byzantine Church, it's very bright, very colorful, very light. The Byzantine style architecture is going to be curved and Romanesque, whereas the Gothic style architecture is going to be more pointed. They don't have curved arches. They have lots and lots of points and angles on it. Even in the windows, there are arches that are there. And they're also going to have flying buttresses. You're not going to see a flying butt, but a flying buttress, which you can kind of see the shadow here, just allows them to have steeper steeples on them there. If you take a picture in the city or wherever you go in front of a church that has a Romanesque style, Byzantine influence architecture, or a Gothic style pointed architecture here, I know there's one right by my house, I will give you 1 point of extra credit on any assignment that you choose. You can just take a picture in front of one of those and email that to me, and you'll get extra credit on the assignment. We're not going to go over this. We're going to do this one in class, but we need to go on to the conversion of Russia. We said Russia is up here, and Russia is going to convert mainly to Eastern Orthodoxy. It all starts with this guy, Vlad. Did I do this one? Conversion of Russia. Russia is also known as Kievan Rus. Kiev, named after one of the biggest cities that they have there that's still around today. Well, Kievan Rus, now known as Russia, was really fragmented. It had different types of principalities and so on. That should sound familiar. As with any area, people want to figure out a way to unify them. And so, because Kievan Rus is so fragmented, it's also really diverse. There are Christians, Muslims, Jews, almost every kind of people you can think of live there. But Russia mainly is going to be trading with Byzantium, and it really wants to be able to connect to other empires and to unify. And so Vlad gets a great idea. He's like, how about we unify under one religion? That'll bring us all together, and I might be able to keep and grow this empire of Russia, of Kievan Rus. So he tries out Judaism, and he's like, don't really like Judaism. They get persecuted way too often. Then he tries out Islam. He likes it a lot, but In Islam, there's no drinking alcohol. Apparently, Vlad really liked the vodka. And so he's like, nope, that's one of the greatest joys of being a Russian. So he turns down Islam as well. And then he lands on Greek Orthodoxy. He lands on that because not only is he like, wow, the Byzantine Empire is really, really wealthy, but he's also really impressed by the churches in Constantinople. And you saw the Hagia Sophia. It was really quite beautiful. He made the decision. He wasn't forced to join the Orthodox Church by anyone. And he actually ends up staying Orthodox even after Byzantium becomes Islamic much later. So many parts of Kievan Rus is going to continue to be Eastern Orthodox in Russia, even after parts of Byzantium fall to Islam. If you think about the Russian ethnicity, they're all going to be Slavs. And so those are like the Ukrainians, the Slavic nations, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia. Those are all, Slovenia, by the way, a hometown of our home place of our next upcoming First Lady, Melania Trump. So think about Russian ethnicity in those terms that are there. They're also going to be, he's also going to create something called the Cyrillic alphabet, which is a combination of the Greek alphabet and the Slavic alphabet. So you're going to see it here on this next page. And the Cyrillic alphabet, because Cyril is the Byzantine missionary alphabet, he creates this alphabet so that he can spread Greek Orthodoxy around the rest of Russia to all the Slavic nations. And what's also awesome is that he translates the Bible to get it into the hands of more Russians so that more Russians can read it on